Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another webinar. It's hard to believe it's Thursday after the first full week of what seems to be a crazy amount of work across the state with all the teachers, with all of you working so hard to get your virtual classrooms up and going. We're also, I think this is number 4 maybe of Jaclyn sharing her wonderful knowledge with us about Google Classroom, and today focusing on, in particular, looking about how you can create virtual assessments and integrate those with Google Classroom. So again, this morning, to let you know who's going to be on the call, I'm Mike Schwartz, and I've been working with the Department of Education for quite some time, and want to thank the Department of Education for offering these webinars and allowing us to get these out to the schools. Caitlin Davis and her division in the department has been supporting this work, so thanks very much to Caitlin. I'm joined today with Ann Mordecai, who also works as part of Demonstrated Success and has years of experience in helping schools with assessment data as well as many other areas. Ann's going to be helping watch some of your questions as you might enter them in the chat area or the question area, so we can get them to Jaclyn. And then we're excited that Jaclyn Karabinas is going to be joining us for another tour through Google Classroom, as I mentioned, focusing on virtual assessments. Jaclyn, thank you so much. Your services that you've been able to provide to this teachers across the state is invaluable. And I know there's so many people who are so much further ahead of the game now than they were even a day or two ago. So thanks, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say today. A quick few logistics, just to make sure we're all on the same page, and most of you probably have this down by now. But the GoToMeeting control panel allows you to enter questions, so please use the GoToMeeting control panel and enter questions as you have them during the meeting. In addition to Ann and I taking a look at them, Jaclyn's a master at looking at questions while she's talking and using her computer at the same time. It's very impressive. So we will try to make sure your questions get answered. If they don't get answered during the call, Jaclyn is also very good about going through and writing answers in the remaining questions, and we post those on our Google Drive. You'll get an email at the end of the webinar with 2 hours after the end of the webinar with a link to the recording of the webinar that you can share with all your colleagues. It'll also give you a link to the question and answers and any other handouts. It will also give you a link to all the past recordings. So please look for that. It'll also give you a link to a professional development certificate. So you'll have that as well. If any of you are having difficulty hearing and it's not coming through all that well, also in your control panel, you can click on the audio and switch to your phone. So you're still watching us on the computer, but you can be listening to us through the phone. So sometimes that works a little better. Excuse me. As I've mentioned through these other webinars, I know these are challenging times for all of us. We look forward to continuing to be able to help through some of these webinars. You are all doing such a great job for your students. Make sure you give yourself some time. Make sure you think about starting small. When we talk about assessments, it's a great area to think about starting small and letting yourself and the students have a little breath. And make sure you've got confidence. You are going to be able to do this. You're all doing fantastic so far. New Hampshire was already recognized in the first week of being a leader in the country in terms of our virtual learning. So it's a result of everything that you're doing out there in your schools. So with that, I think I will pass it off. Oh, one more thing, I'm sorry, before I pass it off to Jaclyn. I want to make sure you all are aware as well, New Hampshire, as part of our overall state support for learning, has a site called, that's www.nhlearnsremotely.com. And I encourage you to visit this site. This site has lots of good information, including many of the tools that you've been hearing about on these webinars. There's links to those different tools, and there's other information for you on this website, as well as a calendar that has a list of many events. So Jaclyn's going to walk us through several different areas. She's going to remind us about what's important right now, and not to get over anxious about some of the assessment stuff. So walk us through Google Forms, give us a tour of Flipgrid, and then provide some other additional exploring tools that you can use for assessments, and some final resources. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jaclyn and give her control of the screen. And thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Ann. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a great Thursday. The sun is shining, and that is helping me significantly today. So make sure you get outside and give yourself some time outside in the fresh air today. It's really important while we're all stuck at home. If you're joining me for the first time, I'm really excited that you're here so I can help you as much as I possibly can. If you have joined me for a few other webinars, welcome back. I've really enjoyed working, providing information through the webinars and doing follow-up questions and emails with people to help you all continue the great work you're doing. So great job, you got this. Today we're going to dive into thinking a little bit about assessment. And I'm going to walk through, like Mike said, 2 tools that I think will be the kind that will sort of stretch, depending on your content level or the age students that you serve. I think that these are going to provide a broad range of opportunities. That's why I picked these 2. And then at the end, I'm going to look at a few more examples. If you've been in my previous webinars, you know I've gone a little bit over. My goal today is to not do that. So I have some notes about timestamps written down here that I'm going to move through things, not too fast, but enough that we can get to both tools. So here we go. We're going to dive in. If you've been with me before, you've sort of heard my words up to ground us at the beginning about what's important right now, that this is not business as usual and assessment will be no different. There are students learning in very different settings. Students have a variety of people caring for them right now, and it's all a very different setting for all of us, on top of the fact that I'm sure many of you are trying to teach and provide instruction and plan for assessment with all sorts of things going on in your own home setting. So just always keeping in mind that this is a very different setting as we move forward, that we certainly want to think about content and student learning, but we also need to keep in mind that we want to look out for the well-being of ourselves and our students. And so that's why I always remind everyone to prioritize your relationships with students and your community. And certainly when you're making considerations for assessment, really relying on pre-assessments at this time and formative assessments. I know there are going to be cases where it is necessary to do some summative assessments. And so just thinking very carefully about how we plan those and how we communicate with students so that everyone feels as though they have an equitable chance to complete assessments and do their best. Thinking about what is the most important to assess right now, certainly set your priorities, think about what you want to accomplish over the next few weeks, months, and plan your assessments accordingly, and just choose the tech and the tools that support your goals. There are a lot of tools out there. Not all of them are perfect for your goals. So we definitely want to think carefully about that. And so that is why I chose the tools I did. Like I said, I feel like it'll be a nice broad range for you to pick from. So we're going to jump in first to Google Forms.
There we go.
Okay, does everyone see? There we go. Okay. Apologies, everyone. I hope that you were still able to follow along with me. I did put the link to this, by the way, in the chat box. So you can access and print this for your notes at any time. So we're going to jump into Google Forms right now. And if you aren't familiar with Google Forms, I'm just going to show you where it's coming from. I know these tools are new for a lot of you, and we've been talking a lot about Google Classroom. Many of you are maybe using Google Classroom as your home base to disseminate information and push out links to students. Google Forms it is a G Suite app, and it is one of the core apps via your Google Drive. So I'm actually just going to go there right now so you can see where this app even comes from. So in your Drive, when you click on New, you'll see the opportunity to create new documents, new sheets, slides, all of the different apps, and sometimes you have to do more to get them, and you'll find Google Forms there. You also may find it, depending on how you are set up, in the top right from the waffle. The little waffle in the top right in Google, you can scroll down and you'll see lots of your app options there. If you're using it from within Google Classroom, you don't have to go to Drive. You can just do it right from Classroom. And so I'm going to do it right from Classroom. It will look exactly the same. I just wanted to show you where I was getting it in case you were not so sure if this tool was new to you. So I'm in my Google Classroom, and just a quick reminder that in the top right is our main screen, our little main menu here, and that shows all of the classes that you've either joined or created. And then you can go into your individual classes by clicking on it. So I'm going to start as though I were creating a Google form, brand new. So let's say I was thinking in terms of creating a quiz assignment. It uses the word quiz here, but you can think of this broadly. Think of it as survey assignment. I think something really important right now could be a weekly survey, just checking in with students. You could do a static form, a social emotional check-in, a home workstation, or does everyone have what they need? So I highly recommend that kind of assessment at this time. So even though this says quiz, just think more broadly about it for a survey. So when I do this, I get the main screen for creating an assignment. And so I'm just going to call this, we'll call it social emotional check-in. And again, this could be for anything, a math quiz, a pre-assessment for vocabulary, reading comprehension, just about anything that you're looking to gather information on. So really the only difference from choosing quiz assignment and assignment is that it automatically pulls up a blank document for you right here. It really just saves you a step from having to go create it, click add it from your drive. It's just saving you a step. So here I am, I'm going to click on blank quiz and it will open in a new tab. And so here I go, I'm going to create my quiz. Let's just take a look and get to know the anatomy of Google Forms. We have our title in the top left, what folder it's in, we can find it, our title here. We have some settings up in the top right. Be very important choosing the theme and color of your form. It can get very distracting. So those are some things that you can play with and change. Previewing your form once it's done, always good to kind of see what it looks like. Your form settings, we're going to go over these in much more detail later, but this lets you figure out who's taking the quiz, how many times, what do you want it to look like? Is it a quiz? Do you want to add point values? So again, that's the settings gear that has become very familiar to you, I'm sure, in all of these ed tech tools. And our little snowman or vertical 3 dots is a more menu, just like in all Google tools. This will show you more, and it will show you all sorts of things that you can do. One different thing in Google Forms than the other G Suite apps is that you don't share a Google form with students. You don't share it with others because then they have editing rights. That's why this is worded a little bit differently. It says add collaborators. So if you and another co-teacher were both going to create the form together, you would want to do that, but you would not add students there. Just wanted to point that out. Any preferences for the form? Do you want to collect email addresses, make all the questions required? That kind of thing. So lots of different options when you're playing around, just like when you create any assessment, really being clear about what you want to collect, how and why, really relying on your how and why to make the best choice for the settings. So the other thing I'll just show you here is in the end, your form for send. We won't need to use this feature in Google Classroom because whenever it is posted as an assignment, students will already see the form linked there in the assignment to collect. If you were sending it via email, embedding it in a website, you would use this feature. If you wanted to send it in email, you can put email addresses right in here. Put people's names, they'll pop up, everyone in your domain as you send it. If you wanted to paste the link somewhere, you would just click here and grab this link by copying and pasting. And that would be something if you're not doing it within Google Classroom. This box will tell you it's automatically going to collect the addresses of those who take your assessment. In G Suite for Education, it's going to do that. It will put the student's name on it. So give you a timestamp and everything. So you'll be good to go. I just wanted to show you that feature so that you were aware of it if you're using Forms outside of Classroom. So the right here in the middle of Forms, continuing to look at the anatomy, you have two tabs. We have questions and we have responses. So you can toggle between those. Questions are obviously where your questions are, where you're designing your form. Responses will show you what they look like. And I'm going to show you a completed form here, which I think is going to help. Let's go back to our classroom. Just going to show you the completed form so that you can see what this looks like. And then I'll walk through looking at the different types of questions and the way we can format those. So you can see, all right, this is a multiple choice. You can see because we have the little dots we're going to fill in. So here's a completed form. You'll see all the different sort of boxes per question. This is just a vocabulary pre-assessment, so there is not a lot of text in the question, not a lot of engaging visual features, video or images, which you can do. But I just wanted to help you see what a full live form would look like. This little pencil icon in the bottom right would not be there for your students. This is here for me because I am a teacher or co-teacher in the class, and I can edit this form, but students do not see that. They cannot edit the form. So I'm going to go back over to our blank quiz here into our questions. So we'll just do, just to start, we'll do a fun quiz to get started, and I'm going to name it in both places. It already tells me it's collecting email addresses for my class, so that's helpful. So here along the left, when you're in a question, you'll see all of the different icons, and all you have to do is hover over them to know what they do. So we have add a question, import questions, that's if you already have a list of questions elsewhere, add a title and description, we're doing that right now, add an image, add a video, or add a section. Add a section would be if you want to chunk the information, so you want to do it maybe 3 questions at a time. You could create questions, add a section. It would, the screen would end for students, and then you could go on to the next one. The questions, I like to think of them as little note cards almost, because you can drag them around in reorder. See how I'm getting a different, see really quick. See how I'm getting a different icon here whenever I hover over? I'm getting a little cursor, that plus. That, when I have more questions, I can click and drag. So I'm just going to start here and create a few types of questions so that you can see our options. So I clicked right here in the question card, I like to call it, and now I have all sorts of options for this question. Let's take a look at the different types of questions. Now, I won't have time to give you an example of every single type of question today, but when you're planning out your assessment, just kind of think about the kind of information you want to gather, and that will tell you what kind of question to pose. When I first started using Google Forms years ago, it taught me very quickly that I needed practice with designing assessments because I had a very hard time choosing the right type of question to gather the information I wanted. And it was a really great learning opportunity for me to become better at designing assessments. So short answer is exactly what it sounds like. What day is it? So, and it gives you suggestions. So Google Forms is super smart. It sometimes will sense your question and guess what you want the answers to be. Of course, it won't always do that, but when it does, I will take it. So I'm just going to click add all. But what if I didn't want it to be multiple choice? What if I wanted it to be checkboxes? Like what days are the hardest for you during remote learning? I could change this to checkboxes, and then students would have the opportunity to select more than one. Or perhaps I want a drop-down. And whenever this is in view mode, this would be a drop-down menu and students would select. That's really good to use when you have a lot of options or choices so they aren't overwhelmed. File upload. This is good for if you want students to take a multiple choice quiz, but then you want to see their work perhaps on something, or they've done some work, or they've taken a photo of work or taken a photo of something, created another kind of file. You can choose a file upload question. So I'm just going to click on this one. So here I am, I'm choosing file upload, okay. And this will let you do this only in G Suite. So it's going to just kind of remind you that files are going to be uploaded to the drive. And then you have different options for how many files, file types, the size, that kind of thing. The other type of question that I wanted to point out that's great is a linear scale if you're looking for students to answer on a range of things. This is especially good for the social emotional check-ins, picking a range, and that way you can gauge week to week how students are feeling in their new settings. These next two are some of my favorites. If you've ever done the surveys or quizzes that are sometimes, always, never, that kind of thing, this is a great one to use, multiple choice grid. Sometimes this one takes a little bit of practice to wrap your brain around what it looks like. But it's a really good one when you're saying, you know, choose from the following statements. I'm doing lots of social emotional thinking today. I think that's where my brain is with students. And so if you envision this, anything you put here is going to be in your rows horizontal, and anything here will be in your columns. So great, terrible, that kind of thing. Or you could say, how are you feeling? Completing work, finding a quiet space, working online. And then across the top, you could say, great, okay, terrible. I'm just giving a quick example. These are great too for, let's just do a quick preview so you can see what that looks like. Yeah. So how am I feeling from these statements? Well, maybe there are a number of things you want to ask. There are a number of types of questions you want to ask for content, and they'll have similar responses or a range of responses. And then you can, students will choose in this way. The checkbox one works the same way. It's just that students can check a variety of options there. So just showing you that opportunity. Clicking also here, looking in terms of including the date and time. You don't need to include those because Google Forms will take your answers and it will timestamp them and date stamp them. And so I'll show you what that looks like. But if you wanted students to include the date and the time of something else other than what the date and time of when they're completing the assessment or the survey, that's when you would include that type of question. If you've designed a question and you've worked really hard on it and you want to mimic that same format, all you need to use is this little duplicate icon here, and it will duplicate the whole question, and then you can go and edit the question or the options. It's a really great time saver. If you want to require a response in each row, you can toggle this. And again, 3 dots in Google Land as always, more. So this is where you could give a little bit more of a description to the question, giving some further instructions if you think students will need that. You can limit responses, shuffle the order of these. So again, thinking about what you want to collect and why. Let's take a look now at I just want to quickly show you what it looks like to add a video or image, and then we're going to take a look at the usage of the points and answer key and quiz and things like that. So I'm going to go down here and choose, let's see, add a question. And here we go. It put it right there. If I want to move it, I can just click and drag it around if I want. And now I'm going to say, okay, what phase of the moon is this? I'm just going to quickly do a choice here. I can say, click on my little image here, add an image, or I can do it over here. So if you click add an image, you're going to get some familiar options. I can upload it from my computer. I can take a picture right here from my device. I can add the address of the image. I can pull from my photos. If I have it already in Drive, it will pull up any images I already have in Drive that I can select, or I can search right from here. Here we go. Let's just do this one. I'm going to select and insert. And maybe I would add a drop down, or maybe I want students to give a short answer to type it in. Oh, where did my picture go? Let's add that again. Go back to my moon. Okay. Where did my moon go? There we go. Now I can insert. Okay, here we are. Image title. And so I like to put phase of moon, just so students are clear that the picture goes with this question. Or the first option, when you're putting in, you have option 1, option 2, and so on and so forth. If you want to do picture options and not text options, that's what we would use this one for. So this is great for our younger learners. It's great for if you want to differentiate and add images as options for students. It's great if you are including screenshots of math problems. Choose the problem that does not have the correct proof or something like that. That way you can add your options, your multiple choice, as images instead of text. So that is a good way to do that. Taking a look here now at points. And again, this tool has a lot of different features, and the more you play with it, the faster you will get. I know that there's a lot of icons and I'm moving around a lot, but when you get in there and play, you will get very comfortable with it. And before you know it, you'll be creating quizzes and surveys in no time. You can create them very quickly if you know what kind of information you want to gather. So let's say I do want to make this a quiz. So I'm going to go up into my settings. Again, the gear in the top right are settings. And here I'm going to toggle over to quizzes. So if I don't want it a quiz, I could just untoggle that, no point values. You would do that with, I can think of, a number of reasons why you might do something like that. If you do want to make it a quiz, you can toggle it. If your school has managed Chromebooks, you can do locked mode. Talk to your admin, your G Suite admin, about enabling that on managed Chromebooks. That keeps students from moving from tab to tab and looking up answers in different tabs on their computer. That's not to say they're not doing that on other devices. So, thinking about the kind of information that's most authentic to gather at this time to give you the best picture of student learning is going to be really important. And then you can decide how you're going to release the grade. Do you want to do it immediately, or do you want to do it later after manual review? If students are using email addresses, you can release it to them that way. And I don't like to release them right away unless every question is black and white, multiple choice, a one-word answer, a drop-down, because if you have something that's a short answer or an open response, you'll want to manually score those so that you can really read. The computer isn't going to read and assess that. So we want to be able to read those. And so I like to do them after manual review, and I'll show you what that looks like. So what do you want the respondent to see? When they complete it, do you want them to automatically see their missed questions, their correct answers, the point values, and again, just kind of depending on what you want to add in there. So I'm going to save, and I'm going to show you how the computer knows what the answer to the question is when students take it and you want it to be a quiz. So if you make it a quiz, at the bottom of each question, you're going to see that option. Oops, I have two of those. Let's see. I just want to show you that one more time. There we go. I clicked answer key. And so when I clicked answer key, then I get this new sort of screen here where I get to pick how many points this is. And I'm going to choose the correct answer. So this was a checkbox. So I want to choose multiple, or if it was just one, I would choose the answer. I want to choose add answer feedback. So you can, this is where you can add for each question. If someone got it wrong, you could give them sort of a hint, think about, and then whatever sort of clue or hint you wanted to give them. For correct answers, you can add feedback, great job, super thinking, wonderful. I mean, you can get silly with it and have fun with it. Students might enjoy that. You can also leave it blank. If you're someone that likes to make videos of explaining various answers, or that there's a video that explains this is how you find the area of a triangle, or this is how you read latitude and longitude, you can put that in there. Sort of makes it a learning assessment as you go, or you can add a link to something else. It could be a picture example, a graphic organizer, a document that explains, whatever it is that you might have. And so thinking about the kind of feedback you want to add. If you're new to this, you might not do that quite yet. So be easy on yourself, try one feature at a time, play around and see what works for you. So once I have here, I'm looking at my points. I'm going to head back over here now to my classroom because, let's see, go back into my classroom here. Because when students create the quiz and they complete it, they're going to find it in their classwork stream. So remember, we talked about before, if you've learned Google Classroom, we have the stream and we have classwork. And the stream generally has the conversation, or it might just have a quick note. If you allow classwork posts there, it will show you. So that is where students will find the quiz. They might see it if you have a due date, they'll see it show up over here. Or if you have students only accessing quizzes and things like that from classwork, they'll find it here and click on it to create it. So when they click on it and it opens, they'll take the quiz, it will come to you. You'll be able to see that they completed everything, and you'll be able to assess. So I'm going to show you where you find your answers, and then show you where you can upload those scores into other places. And then I'm going to have to switch over to Flipgrid, but I will come back for some questions in just a moment. So here in your quiz, I'm going to find one that's already created here. Let's get this to load here. Okay, so when you have responses, it will show you a summary of all of them. I love graphs, so I get very excited when Forms gives me a graph. I can quickly see what kinds of things I need to address depending on the type of question that I've assigned. So here's a summary of everyone. Here's where I can look question by question, and I can toggle through them here. Here's where I look at individual students. So if I'm looking at an individual person's answers, I can see all of their answers here. I can see everything they individually answered. This is also a place where if I want just a print file or a hard copy on my computer file of that, I can click print. I could save that as a PDF if I wanted. This is what I would do if we're not using email addresses to provide feedback to students. You could save that and then send that document to them to see their quiz. So something to understand about Forms is that Forms feeds all of the answers into a spreadsheet. And so you can view your answers and responses right here in Forms, but Forms always links up with a spreadsheet. And so you can see the Google Sheets icon is right up here. That's another G Suite core app. And when I click on that, look what it does. It feeds all of the answers into a spreadsheet. It is absolutely beautiful. This is where if you had an answer that was an open-ended response and you wanted to manually score it, it would show up here without points next to it, and it would give you a little drop-down box to manually score. So just something to look for if you're experimenting with that. So this is another really helpful way for you to look and see and work with the data that students have given you in their form. So I'm just going to jump over really quick to questions, and I want to sort of be mindful of my time so I can switch over to Flipgrid to think of a totally different kind of assessment. And I'm going to look in the chat box here. Okay, I don't see any questions so far on my screen. Mike or Ann, do you have any questions that have popped up? Oh, never mind, I do see them, sorry.
There are the questions.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's see. Okay, I have, how do my students type Spanish? Yes, so this depends on the kind of device you're on. I'm on a Mac, and when I hold down a key for a long time, I get a window that pops up with all of my different ways that I can type that letter. So if you just do a quick Google search on the type of device they're using, Chromebook, likely on a Chromebook, it's the same thing. So if I hold down, I'm going to try and show you that. So if I hold down the letter A and I just hold it down, I get all of my options. If I want an upside down question mark rather, whoops, well, that one's not working for me there. Yeah, I would just put that in a Google search, but typically if you just hold down the letter, your options will pop up. Symbols do work too. Let's see, can a photo from a smartphone be uploaded into an assignment to prove work? Yes, so you can use the question type where you add a question type where they have to upload the photo and add a file.
Jaclyn,
Can material be changed?
If you uncheck show answered questions, so it's not showing the answered questions, you'll see some of these have already been answered.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. I haven't used that feature before.
And there's a
very helpful.
bunch of questions. I think people are asking about how you associate the student with the results, whether you do it through Classroom or whether you do it through G Suite outside of Classroom.
How you associate the student. Yes. Okay. So thank you for that. Let's take a look over here back in. So I'm going to click on grades. So this particular class is brand new, doesn't have any students. So let me pull up a classroom that does have students and take a look at that. So in the other assessment I just showed you, there were no names on that one. I did that on purpose. That was the kind of assessment where I was doing a pre-assessment of the whole class to know vocabulary. But if I am clicking in my classroom on the grades tab, any assignment that I have created and I have made here, it's going to show up. And this is where those are going to appear. So if I have created an assignment, I have scored it within Classroom, I have scored it within Form. Well, in Forms, it's going to produce the answers and score it. If you've chosen as a quiz, that's all going to show up here. And if I need to edit something or I need to return it so they can do it again, that is where you will find that.
Jaclyn, when you were looking at the form before and you were showing us the results of the 45 students in the form, is the student's name included in that typically?
Yes, the student's name is included in that, yes. So I think that has to do with, that question may be due to the example that I chose here. So this one right here, because I didn't ask for a name, I didn't include it. This was a survey that I did outside of G Suite. It would show up right in between A and B. You would see timestamp, student name, and then you would see all of the questions right here in their column. And that date and timestamp is going to show up every time. So date and timestamp, name, and moving on from there. There's a question about the default of making it email. Always collect email addresses. In G Suite, it will do this. When you do your settings, it will ask you to check the box that you are accepting emails from your domain, and that's it. Is there a limit to the number of quizzes? No, definitely not. Let me share. Yes, example of quiz answers. Yeah, so the answers on quizzes are case sensitive. So this is why if you're doing a short answer or if you're doing a longer response, you're definitely going to want to manually score those. And so going back into, when you go into your spreadsheet, if you've chosen manual scoring, you will see a little drop down right there, and it will ask you to put the points and manually score. Let's see. Yeah, so someone says, I was told every Google form must start with what is your name as the first question. Absolutely, unless you're within the G Suite domain. So, I mean, I still do it just as good practice so I don't forget if I'm doing a survey or quiz outside of the G Suite domain. But I definitely know that whenever you check the box that says collect respondents' emails, it's going to take them for you. So then you will be all set with student names. I'll just do one more thing here. Could you review the schedule option about posting work? I'm not sure I understand that question, but let me come back to that if I can think about what you might be asking. So Google Forms can definitely do a whole hour on it. Maybe that's something that I'll dig into in the coming weeks. It's the kind of thing that once you start to play with, you get used to looking at the features. You get used to seeing, okay, I'm creating my quiz. I have my questions and all my settings in each little card. I have my gears and all of my icons at the top for settings. And if you hover over anything, it will tell you what to do. You find your responses in the response tab, or you can click on the sheet, and that's how you get to that right there. And that is how you will find all of the answers for your quiz. There are definitely some other features that I would love to show you, but I'm going to jump over to Flipgrid right now to think about some video assessment. So Flipgrid is one of those tools that, here we are. There we go. So Flipgrid is one of those tools where there are a ton of features and it can be a little overwhelming, but I'm just going to show you the very basic core features, because this is something where if you want to listen to students speak a response, you want them to show, speak and show an example of something they've created. If you're teaching foreign language and you want to hear students practicing, I'm thinking music. Students can perform, they can play, they can sing. Students are creating artwork and sharing. Maybe you're doing a read aloud, a chapter every day, and you want to hear students respond, and you want to assess their response on a rubric for how complete or how they're applying a certain comprehension strategy. That is why Flipgrid is included today, because it's a really flexible tool. So just flipgrid.com, you make an educator account. It is one of those tools where it will vary district to district whether your school permits Flipgrid or not. Sometimes your IT or your district admins will have protocols about exactly the way that you'll have students use this. Students don't need to make an account. They can join in a number of different ways, and I'm going to model those for you right now. It's called Flipgrid because your grid is a class, essentially, and you get, when you create videos and students create videos, they show up in a grid all across the screen. I'm not going to go into these other ones right now because I just want to show you the very basic in case this is something that you want to play with and get started. So I'm going to go here to my grids. And again, I just created an account. I went to Flipgrid. I created an educator account. It's free. And off I go. So once you create your grid, then you have the next level, which is called your topics. And topics are essentially your prompts. So right now I have two grids, so two classes. So this one I created for read aloud. So if I wanted to hear a response and assess student responses for their listening comprehension or something like that, I could post here. And so I post my topic, and that is the prompt. And when I post the prompt, your topic, and you share that with students, and I will show you how to do that in just a moment, then the answers will start to show up here. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. And here I've provided the feedback. When I create a topic, I can add how many points it is. I can sort of give rubric information so that students know what is expected out of their response. So this is my daughter doing a test for me. And I don't think you'll be able to hear it because I'm using headphones. But here, she left the video. And when it was very simple. You click, the students, they get their code, they click on the green icon, they create their video, and then they'll see the feedback that I have given them. I can copy the feedback information, I can send it, I can email that feedback if another teacher needs to see it, or families, but you can really just keep it all right in here. This is where I can edit the student's video if I want. If I want to share a copy of this, maybe the student did a really great job and I want their Title I teacher to hear it, or I want another staff member or support teacher to hear their response. I can copy that link and just send it to them there. And again, you see these lovely icons here. You can embed it. You can, if you're a Microsoft school and you're using Microsoft Teams, you could share it right away to Google Classroom. You wouldn't necessarily do this for student videos unless the student was creating something they wanted to share with the whole class. But if you made your own video, you could share that right to Classroom. And if you're someone using Remind, I know a lot of schools are using Remind, you could just create the video and share the video on Remind as well, and not even worry about the grid part of it. So let me just take a bunch of steps backwards and go from the very beginning. So here I am, and my main dashboard sort of shows me everything that I have going on here. Like I said, there's a lot of features, so I'm just focusing on the basics. So I'm going to go to my grid and create a new grid so you can see how I do this and how I add students. So I'm going to click Add New Grid. I'm going to name it. So I'm going to call this Music Period 3. Okay, and now I just have to decide on the grid type. So if your students have a Microsoft or a Google account, you can choose this. If you want it to be public and you want all kinds of people to be able to access it via link, you can do that. But mostly I recommend this because that way students don't ever have to log in. They can just use a code. So I'm going to click here and say, I would like this grid to be student ID. And again, this would be the option if you know students know their G Suite Google address and they can log in independently, you could certainly just use that. It's not making a Flipgrid account, it is just linking them into your grid. So I'm going to choose this one. I like to personalize them. So let's see, I'd like to call this Karabinas Music Grid, and let's see if that's available. It is. Just kind of personalize my link here and choose Next. So I could upload a full student list and give them, I could use a student ID if that's a number that students use frequently, or I could assign them a number that they would type in. So I'll just show you how to do that here. Maybe they're 0001, or maybe they're just 02, or you just want to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however it is, if you, however you have your students numbered. If you were doing a giant list, you would want to create a spreadsheet, download it as a CSV file, and upload it that way. I'm not going to go through that whole process right now, but if you want to do that, give it a try, and if you need help, you can always reach out to me later for that. So I'm going to add this student here, which is myself. Okay, add, whoops, sorry. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, add. Now, when a student gets the link to the grid, they're going to type that in. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to click Next. Okay, launch my grid. All right. So here's my link to the grid. So if I want to share this right to Classroom and have students join, I can do that here. If I click on it, it's going to bring up my class here. I can click, I can choose the class. I can choose if it's an assignment or just an announcement. Maybe the first time you do it, you post it as an announcement, and then you can send everybody their codes to post it here. They'll access it through there. I'm going to put it in a new window just so you can see what that looks like. If I'm a student, so here's, if I clicked on it in Classroom, it would bring me right to that grid, and it says, oh, enter your code. So I enter my code, and that's going to get me right in there. Let's go. Great, here I am. So I left this, all of the grids start with this static question. You can edit that just to help students get used to this new medium so that before you're assessing them with it, you can give them a chance to get comfortable. So when students do that and they add their response, all they have to do is click it, and here they start their video. They have their time limit. This is something you can set. Can't be higher than 5 minutes, which is probably a good thing in a lot of ways, depending on the type of thing, the type of assessment, how much I want to hear from the student. I will adjust the time accordingly. Great feature for you and for students. I know you might be seeing me on the screen right now. This sticky note feature helps students plan out what they're going to say, or helps you plan out. So I might say, give directions, explain points, positive feedback. So student, when you are making this video, no one can see this sticky. That's just for you. It's like a little note thing for you to have to guide you while you're making your video, and for students too, so they can really plan out their response and not forget anything based on the criteria you've listed. So just click record, 3, 2, 1. Testing, testing. I'm sharing all of my knowledge about comprehension and setting and characters, or whatever it is I'm being assessed on. Students, of course, can add stickers, they can draw, lots of fun things, add filters. We know that kids love filters, so it is a really fun tool. And then it's very intuitive. They click next, they can review it, and off they go. So they submitted it. So now I'm going to see that on my side. Oops, there we go. Okay, and then whenever you go in here, let's see, oh, I didn't submit my video. Go back, here we go. Next. All right, so I didn't do a very good selfie to go with that. Students love that feature. You make a selfie to attach onto it. We click submit. Yay, I'm all done. Okay. So now when on the teacher side, I'm coming back over. Now I'm going to see, I'm just going to give a little refresh here. While that's refreshing, I'm just going to take a quick look at some questions here. So there's a question about Flipgrid. Can they upload a video from a phone or a tablet? They would just create the video right from within Flipgrid. There is an app for it. Do you use Flipgrid through Google Classroom? So Flipgrid is a separate app, but it's integrated. So I can send it right to there, or I can post the link, and then with Google Classroom as your home base, students can access the grid from there. Can a Flipgrid just record voice and not their own image of self? I don't think so. That's not a feature that I've really looked into because I rely so much on the video, but we can certainly take a look and find it. How do I assign different parts of the story for each student to read? Do you have a good idea for assigning them different parts? Sure, so you could make, like, if you wanted different students to read each part and create sort of like a read aloud grid from each student, you would create different topics. So you could say topic 1, Sarah, topic 2, Mark, or whatever. That might be a way to do it. Is there a limit on how long, Heather's asking? Yes, up to 5 minutes, but you can create as many grids and topics as you want. All right, so take a look here. Oh, I see my response popping up here. So here's my student, and if I want to hide it, if it's one that I'm not ready to make public, I can do that. Make it active. This is where I view it, and I have lots of options here that I can do. Delete it. I can download it. That kind of thing. So I'm just going to click on this here. Now this one right here has the stat. Oh, I'm going to pause that. I don't want to watch myself moving around. That's not a good pause. So over here, you can see that here's a static rubric that whenever you create the topic, you can choose. So you can do ideas, performance are the static ones. You can pick these. So you could do, you could do clarity, you could do whatever it is you're trying to assess. Complete, you could do, a variety of different criteria and give them different points. Let me go back to my grid and I will quickly show you how to find that. Close. Here we go. So I'm just going to look back at my grids here and go into my read aloud one. Here is my topic. So I made this new topic. I gave the directions for it. And then here is where I'm going to edit this. Edit. Okay. My screen is getting upset that I'm doing a lot of clicking around right now. So let's go back up here. Grids. Here we go. Okay, here we go. So my pencil is my edit for my topic. So this is where I would create my assignment. This is music response, how long I want students to have. Oh, you can do 10 minutes. Excellent. I thought it was 5. I stand corrected. So that's great in some cases. You may not want to watch 50 videos that are 10 minutes long. Here's where you type in your instructions. You can add little stickers and a media resource to engage students. There are lots of different options for that, or leave it blank if you think it's distracting. Any tips you want to give them as they're doing it, lots of different features. But here's the most important one right now, which is thinking about feedback. So if I want to give custom feedback on the topic for each student response, I'm going to add criteria. So here's where I pick each of my criteria. So again, thinking in terms of, so complete response, what does that mean? So give a very clear description. If you're doing 0-1 for you did or you didn't, which might be a great way to start to ease students into this remote kind of assessment. You could do 0-1. If students are comfortable with this and you want to move up to a rubric of 1 through 4, you could put that description in here, just like this, minimum and maximum. And so you could add your descriptors here. A 1 is not complete, 4 is meets all criteria. And again, you would want to be clear and list those here. So now I'm including all of these. I'm including the rubric so that when students submit a video, I get that editing box. I get the box to type feedback, to click on the rubric and show where they landed for assessment. And that way you can gather that important information and you can use that to plan future instruction, or you can decide what you're doing with that as far as putting it in a grade book if you need to do that. Maybe you're using it as participation. Maybe you just want to check off that students participated and go from there. So I'm going to click over to questions. It is 10:59 and I know there are a lot. Can you upload a graph to Flipgrid? Yes. So I actually heard of a few teachers that are doing all of their remote learning from Flipgrid. They use Google Classroom and things like that, but they are using Flipgrid as their home base. They're creating grids for each class. They're creating topics for each assignment. They're uploading in the topics, supporting resources like a graph, image, video, that kind of thing. Can students see each other's posts? Only, so students do see each other's posts. They see the full grid, but there's a toggle when you create it if you want to allow them to respond to each other or not. If you are assessing, let's say you're trying to do a book club, and you're trying to assess how well students use language to talk back and forth and agree and disagree appropriately, and provide feedback to each other, you could include that. If you only wanted certain students to be in a grid, then you would only share that link in Classroom with specific students just by checking off their name. What concerns do you have about student privacy on Flipgrid? Yes. So yeah, you definitely always want to check with G Suite about student privacy. If you make the protocol at your school that students are logging in, not logging in rather, but they're accessing it through their Google account, and that teachers are keeping their grids closed and not using that open link that I showed you at the beginning as one of the 3 options, then that is how they can keep things private and within a closed environment. You can make your grid so that no videos show up without you moderating them. So you are only allowing students to see what has been uploaded. And so this is the kind of tool where you have to think very carefully about what you want to see, who you want to see it, and how you want to apply it. I was taught all students must put an emoji over their faces for privacy laws. Yes, that is what most schools are doing. Some schools, if they're working with a protocol of a closed environment, then some schools are, within the small group or within the class, they can do that. But yes, you can certainly do that. Let's see, is there a limit? We did that one. When do we delete something from Google Classroom to make it less confusing? Not sure what you're asking there. You can archive things, but let me see if I can dig into that and answer that after the webinar. So I think the other question was about scheduling an assignment in Google Classroom. When you create a post, there's a little clock, and you can click on that clock and you can schedule the post for a certain date or time. Okay, that's a lot of information, and I see there are more questions, but I will answer all of them that went unanswered after the fact, and demonstrated success will send those out to you. But I hope this gave you a good overview of, depending on your student population, your goals for assessment, and the type of information you want to collect, whether you are creating Google Forms to include through Google Classroom in a quiz assignment, or if you want to collect the more open-ended information using Flipgrid, and then that way you can assess students using criteria and rubric that you set right within Flipgrid. And with that, I am just going to point you to the resources that I list at the bottom here. Flipgrid Help Center is linked here. It will walk you through everything. For Google Forms, this Google EDU in 90, there are lots of videos. They are short and sweet, and they say how to make a quiz, how to grade a quiz, how to upload quiz grades into Gradebook. They're very straightforward and super helpful if you're digging further into that. And then just some other general resources for remote teaching at this time. I highly recommend, if you have a how do I blank question, you go to the support.google.com/edu, you type in how do I grade a quiz, how do I make my answer key. If you want to review that from today, you can select Forms, and it will walk you right through the answer. So I hope this was helpful for you today, and sort of thinking ahead about how you'll plan assessment. So thanks for joining us all, everyone.
Jaclyn, I've got one more question. I promised I'd ask,
Sure.
and that is in Google Forms, can you randomize the questions when your students receive the form?
Yes, you can randomize the questions. So let me see if I can pull that up really quick. Let's try.
Maybe you can search for it in the.
You can. So if you go in the support.google.com, you can, if you type in how do I randomize questions, it will show you. So let me see if I do send here. Let's look at actually my settings. I believe it's in settings. Oh, here we go. Presentation. There we go. Shuffle question order. So I went to the settings gear, presentation, shuffle question order.
Great. Thank you very much.
And you know what? Yeah, I didn't get to talk about this. If you're math teachers out there, if you don't have the extension Equatio, it's EQUATIO, you should absolutely get it. That is how you'll be able to add all the mathematical equations and symbols and all of that. And then if students have it pushed to their Chromebooks, then they also have that. So everywhere they see that little icon, they'll get this little Equatio editor that will pop up at the bottom, and then they can add in mathematical options as well. So I just wanted to point that out. If you're a math teacher, I recommend testing out that tool for sure.
Great, thank you so much, Jaclyn. So let me just share my screen to wrap us up. And I want to once again thank Jaclyn for presenting to us, and hopefully this was very valuable to everybody. And please remember the recording will be posted in a couple of hours, so you can, and you'll get an email about that. So feel free to review the recording if things went a little bit too quick for you. Also, as Jaclyn mentioned, she's always wonderful about getting answers to those unanswered questions that were posted. So we will, in the email that you receive in a couple of hours, you'll have a link to those Q&A document as well. Please know that this week still, later today, there's going to be a virtual classroom for kindergarten webinar going on this afternoon. And then also tomorrow, there's going to be one on virtual learning for English language learners. We're also going to continue with these webinars over the next couple of weeks, so look out for an email or go to our website probably tomorrow, and you'll see a list of registration options for webinars next week. There'll be things on math instruction tools, there'll be things on supporting paraprofessionals virtually, special education students virtually, and probably doing some more grade span stuff as well. In addition, I think Jaclyn's going to be doing a nice and slow-paced, relatively slow-paced as Jaclyn can be, for Google Classroom for novices. So that should be coming out next week, along with another one that Jaclyn's going to be doing as well. And
don't forget
finally,
that New Hampshire Learns Remotely. Everything's listed there plus more.
Thank you, Anne. And please reach out to us with any questions as you might have them also. And as Anne points out, I'll point out two things again on our website. If you go to demonstrativesuccess.com and you go under workshops and webinars, virtual teaching, you'll see all the webinars listed, and we will have additional webinars listed for the next couple of weeks later, probably tomorrow. Then also, as Anne mentioned, if you go to New Hampshire Learns Remotely, there is a calendar here that has not only our webinars, but some of the other things going on around the state. So we encourage you to use New Hampshire Learns Remotely. So with that, we are already over time. Thank you so much, Jaclyn. Thank you so much, Anne, and all of you out there. Thanks for all your efforts for helping New Hampshire students continue to learn. Take care and have a great day.